Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into Dr. Shadé Zahrai's fantastic book, Big Trust. It's all about offering a powerful new way to understand and ultimately overcome self-doubt. And to kick things off, the book asks this really interesting question.
So the book opens with this pretty provocative question, right? And Dr. Zahrai, she didn't just come up with this on her own. No, she went out and asked hundreds of psychologists and top performance coaches the same thing. And what they all came back with? Well, it was fascinatingly simple.
And there it is. The answer from all those experts was just crystal clear. The ultimate saboteur isn't some outside force, it's something internal. It turns out the absolute best way to derail someone's success is to just make them doubt themselves. So that really gets you thinking, right? Why is self-doubt so sticky? I mean, why is it so incredibly hard to shake off once it digs its claws in? And the book has the perfect metaphor for this. Self-doubt doesn't just stick around, it clings relentlessly. Think about those little burrs, the ones that get stuck on your clothes when you walk through a field, the very things that inspired Velcro. It's like that. It's got these tiny little hooks that just tangle themselves up in every thought and action. And yeah, for most of us, this is exactly what it feels like, isn't it? It's not one specific thing you can point to. It's just this giant, overwhelming, tangled up knot of worry and fear and stress. You can't even tell where it starts or ends.
Okay, so what if we've been looking at this whole problem completely backwards? The central idea in Big Trust is that maybe we need to stop fighting our doubt and instead just start to understand it.
And this right here is the absolute key. Trying to just shut up your self-doubt, it's a losing battle. The book argues that the real power, the real change, comes from completely transforming your relationship with that doubt. Honestly, this is a total game changer. Self-doubt isn't actually trying to sabotage you. Think of it more like a really misguided bodyguard. It's your brain's primitive defense system kicking in, trying to protect you from failure or rejection or any kind of harm. And just understanding that, that's the first huge step to getting unhooked from its power. Okay. So if it's not just this messy, tangled blob, what is self-doubt really made of? This is where the book gets super practical and honestly really actionable. So what if that messy knot of doubt wasn't just chaos? What if it actually had a blueprint? Dr. Zahrai's whole idea is that we can actually start to map it out, understand its structure and pinpoint exactly where it's coming from. And this image just illustrates the core idea of the book perfectly. You take that tangled mess on the left, and you can actually break it down into these 4 distinct trainable areas on the right. This is what she calls the doubt profile, and it's all about turning that chaos into absolute clarity. So just to give you an idea of how common this stuff is, let's look at some of the data from the book. 54%. Now that number represents a very specific struggle that more than half of us are dealing with. So get this, over half of the thousands of people that were surveyed for this book scored low on acceptance. We're talking about that deep, fundamental feeling of, am I enough? And that data is so important because it just normalizes the whole struggle. If you feel this way, believe me, you are so far from being alone. All right, let's get into the toolkit. Let's look at how these 4 attributes become the actual building blocks for what Dr. Zahrai calls Big Trust. So you can think of each of these attributes as being on a spectrum. Over on the left, you've got the language of self-doubt. Things like, I'll never be good enough. And on the right, you have the language of self-trust. My value doesn't hinge on what other people think. The whole goal here is to build tiny habits that start to shift you from the left side of this chart over to the right. Okay, first up is acceptance. This one is the bedrock, really. It gets right to that core question, am I enough? And it's all about moving from that feeling of self-rejection to a really deep internal sense of your own worth. Next up, we've got agency. This one is all about your capability. It's about transforming that classic sinking feeling of I can't do this and turning it into a real state of readiness, a trust that, yeah, you can figure things out. Then there's autonomy. This is about control, about your influence over your own life. It's about shaking off that feeling of powerlessness, of just resigning yourself to things, and instead grabbing a sense of ownership. It's knowing that you are the one shaping your own path. And finally, we have adaptability. This is all about managing your internal world.
It's the skill of not getting totally overwhelmed by your emotions, and instead staying grounded and in control of how you respond, especially when the pressure is on.
And here's the crucial thread that runs through all 4 of these attributes. It's about a shift in your focus. You stop obsessing over what you think you can't do, and instead you learn to honor what the book calls your inner authority. That's your unique toolbox of experience, skills, and instincts that you already have.
All right, so how do you actually do this? How do you put all this into practice and start building that deep, unshakable self-trust in your day-to-day life?
Well, the book lays out a really clear, practical path. First, you got to know where you're starting from, so you take the 12-question assessment. Then you start to picture who you want to become. Like, how would you act if all that noise of self-doubt was gone? And third, you find your people. You surround yourself with those who believe in you even on the days you don't. And the key thing to remember is that this is a journey built on small, consistent habits.
And honestly, this is the main takeaway for me. Building this big trust isn't about some huge, life-altering moment. It's not a lightning strike. It's about all the little moments, the accumulation of every small, courageous choice you make day in and day out. So by giving self-doubt a blueprint, Big Trust really gives you a clear, actionable guide to reclaiming your confidence and your potential. And it leaves us with this one final powerful question. A question that makes the path forward feel not just possible, but like something you can start working on today, right now.